Hello. It's been a long time.
Hi, Asukuru.
Welcome back to Mbuya Nyamkuta Glass Table Talk. Tari had ran away from me for a few weeks, so I think the last session I recorded on my own and I felt very lost. She's like the left ventricle.
I'm happy to be back.
So, Tadzoka Foods, we are in the third trimester now. The third trimester runs from 27 weeks to 40 weeks. Anything from 27 weeks is the third trimester. So we've come today just to give a detailed analysis and information of what really happens in the third trimester, the conditions you might meet in the third trimester, how to get those conditions treated, how to navigate the health system when you're in the third trimester. We are also going to touch on some psychosocial issues like what to prepare, how to get everything ready, and even talking about things that will happen after the baby has been born. So we are going to touch on those topics. So to begin with, we are going to touch on the physiological side of things, on the mother and on the baby. I'll hand you over to Tari to talk about the physiological changes happening with the baby.
Thank you. Right, so I think we've been moving on with our trimesters. You remember when we really started with the first trimester, when there was a lot of sickness, there was a lot of things that the body was getting used to. Now the body is now used to being pregnant, right? It's just the growth that we're talking about on the third trimester. It's rapid growth actually, because now we're preparing for the delivery of the baby. So we really want the baby to have the optimum weight. There's no tarisera when the baby is born. So there's rapid growth, and because of the rapid growth, my symptoms my backache, they might be worse in the third trimester, because remember, this baby is getting bigger and bigger, so this will put more weight on the hips, or this will strain the back as well. So these symptoms might be worse. So it's something that happens, but just try to make sure that you're comfortable. Take pain relief. If it's too much, seek medical attention. And then there's also what we call lightening. Lightening is in preparation for, remember, the baby is born through the pelvic canal. The baby anodzika pasi mwana, and then prepares to engage in the pelvis on its way through the birth canal. And so you find that at times dzikira pasi, we call that lightening. So this is the baby who's just which is just preparing to be delivered. The baby is just trying to find their way in the pelvic bone. So there's really nothing that you can do about it. It's normal physiology. When we're preparing for childbirth.
Talking about that, about the baby engaging in the pelvis, you'd find that you'd want to go and pee a lot. Remember what we said? Now this is a almost fully grown baby, together with the weight of the placenta, a whole gravity uterus is with the baby is now descending into the pelvis, where the bladder is right next to the uterus. You find that agency to pee and going to the toilet, the trips to go to the toilet are going to get more and more, because you've got that baby sitting right next to your bladder. It might be helpful sometimes when you go and sit on the toilet, if you feel your bladder is not empty, just lift your bump up a bit. That will give way to releasing some more urine in the bladder, because if your bladder is not emptied properly, you might end up with some urinary tract infection. The bladder is so sensitive in pregnancy when it comes to that. Mm-hmm. And talking on the physiological changes, baby,
I just wanted to touch on conditions like my high blood pressure. Mm-hmm. For people who already have high blood pressure due to pregnancy, or maybe they've just been hypertensive. With pregnancy, usually it gets to be a bit worse because of the pregnancy hormones. And for some people, during the third trimester, the blood pressure tends to be high because there is a lot of hormone activity in preparation for childbirth. So you'll find that your blood pressure can be a bit on the high side, or some people can start to develop blood pressure in the third trimester. That's all I just wanted to add on.
Okay. The other things to look out for is mama conditions in the mother. They tend to get worse, like Tari was saying. You would see conditions like pelvic girdle pain or symphysis pubis dysfunction, because now that the head is getting engaged in the pelvis, that symphysis bone will separate a little bit, and kana wanga wagara utorine symphysis pubis dysfunction. I'm sorry to say sometimes it gets worse as the pregnancy progresses to near term, and also conditions like Mapiles child, they can get worse. It's all because of the pressure that's being exerted into the organs around the pelvis and the pelvis itself. Remember, the pelvis is the structure that connects your upper body and your lower body, and taking that added pressure of having the baby in there can put pressure on the surrounding organs. And the other thing you need to watch out for is the way you sleep at night. We always recommend sleeping on the left. You and I know that's impossible to sleep on one side the whole night. You wake up with things like cramp and stiffness on that one side. So the only way we recommend not to sleep in is the back. It's very important that you understand why we don't recommend you sleeping on your back. It might seem comfortable for a little bit, but there is a big vein that runs through your back. That vein can be occluded because the uterus is so heavy, and if you're lying on your back, that can be occluded and not gonna feel dizzy, and it reduces the oxygenation to the baby as well, because if you're not getting enough oxygen, because there is what we call the aortic cover compression, your baby is not going to get enough oxygen too. So try and avoid lying on your back. Favorable side, the left side, but if it's too much, you can turn to your right. As well as when you're sitting down, try not to sit in a slouching position, because that doesn't encourage the rotation of the baby to be in the optimal position. When babies are born, they are born facing downwards with this part that is what comes out first. But sometimes because baby didn't rotate properly, they can be facing up, and those diameters, the diameter here is obviously different from this diameter. So for this baby to get into the pelvis, sometimes it can prolong the labor. A prolonged labor predisposes you to bleeding afterwards. The uterus is tired. It can't contract quickly when you've delivered the baby. So there are so many things to consider. Whilst we are on that subject, we still encourage exercise. Getting out, walking, doing what is physically manageable to each and every individual, but try to be as active as possible. Some people are not kneeling down, mopping the floors whilst you're kneeling down, or also encourages the rotation of that baby, like I was talking about, to get your baby into the optimal position. So those are some of the things that we encourage around that time. And the other physiological thing, obviously, is the shift in hormones. So you might start feeling sickness in the first trimester. It might come back. To some people it might start, but to people who are carrying multiple pregnancies, those symptoms might not even have gone away, and they can become worse again. I've seen women being admitted with hyperemesis in the third trimester, and sometimes it could be an indication for even inducing the labor, because the mother is so depleted of all reserves, she can't carry on. So if any of these conditions worsen, you will need to get in contact with your healthcare professionals. I don't know if you want to add anything in time.
No, I think you've said it all. I think in the next episode, I think we need to talk about psychosocial aspects, because there are also psychosocial things involved in this third trimester. There are quite a lot. So we're going to talk about that in the next segment. So stay with us.
Thank you.
See you in the next segment.